Okay, everybody, we're taking on, and I hope everybody can still see this into the solar eclipse halfway in. Also, interesting fun fact is about certain areas in zoos, like here, for example, Nashville Zoo will experience quite interesting behaviors with their clients, as some animals will eventually think, by it's getting darker, that it's pretty much time to go for a nap, if there is even time enough for such preparations. And it also looks like it still hasn't taken too much any effect on our current daylight. Sunlight is still very bright, and it just seems to be we're about to lose out on due to some cloud coverage that's about to sneak in here. And there is probably in a moment a chance for me to take a little break from holding my little device here. And another interesting fact is, of course, today, since we're having the direct impact with the sun, the feels like temperature is very close, if not already by over 100 degrees. We're about 92 to 93 Celsius, 93 Fahrenheit, Celsius, into definitely into the 30s. We'll have any moment now this interruption with clouds that's coming through. That probably won't be long. Okay, and again, a couple of moments later, we actually do have cloud coverage bursting through just around the corner, and it seems to be this major cloud here likes to interfere, but it's making its way around our little show here. And a good thing is solar sunlight, the power is just at this moment a lot stronger than the partial cloud cover that we're experiencing at this moment here. So it's coming around and eventually browsing by I'm just now looking through it directly through the camera, and it is kind of hard to determine here at this moment where we are. Believe it's getting to half solar eclipse now, as off and on with a glimpse of a bare eye attempting sometimes without glasses, you are able to notice now that something is taking shape. Something is taking over the sun about halfway through. Okay, we are back under somewhat better conditions. Clouds are definitely surrounding this whole thing, launching an attack on our awesome program here. With a little sneak peek on myself through the glasses, I was able to determine now that this must be the halfway. Again, it's hard to determine on this one here. But we are on halftime with the solar eclipse. Cloud coverage seems to be coming in from all over the areas here, and it seems to be a really good question how much impact it will have for the total solar eclipse coming up. Okay, again, about 5 minutes later in the game, we are now past halftime, as I had to take a sneak peek myself here, coming to a close of a 3/4 approach of the solar eclipse. Moon is making its way definitely in there. Very little clouds at this moment circling around on the wide angle area. There's enough clouds there that could give us here a little hard time in Nashville, Tennessee, the biggest town in its path of the solar eclipse that's about to experience here this awesome phenomenon that there will be nothing like it up to the next 500 years, close to 100. Well, of course, there are 2 more solar eclipses in the next closer 10-year vicinity, you might say so, to 2024 and 26, which also partially will be visible in Europe. 26 more in Western Europe, then also in Asia and Africa. America will be very much in the northern hemisphere. It is also going to be visible then in the Arctic. But this, as an all USA down to the deep south, you might say so, again up to South Carolina, this experience here is the one and only that we as this generation right here won't be able to share with no one else but ourselves. The next 100 years will be left up to our next 2 generations, I believe. Then to up to 500, and either one of those ways, it will be up to them to experience something with only God knows what kind of a high tech we will be dealing with then. Well, maybe there's a lunar eclipse then to be presented from the moon itself, but that wouldn't make too much sense. And it's actually now a little bit noticeable that light has starting to dim down quite a bit. We're about literally half the light now. It is not so bright, and we're still under direct hit sunlight at this moment here. It's the cover seemed to be taking shape. Okay, now after taking a sneak peek myself through the glasses, it is now that the sun appears to be more like a mirror image of a night sickle type of a moon that we're experiencing sometimes quite a bit in the evening hours when the sun has kind of like taken its fair share then from the earth. This time around, of course, it's the moon taking over the sun and giving us through the glasses now the image that the sun is starting to look like the moon in certain ways. And I hope somewhere this whole thing is coming through. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to present the finishing touches, the actual solar eclipse, switching over into 4K with a couple of minutes then going into the Note 4 as this total darkness will swing in, and maybe then with the bare eye we get the one and only direct view. Okay, with it now being in its final stages, I'm hoping we're getting a little bit of a better image now. I'm not quite sure of a previous activity of my flashlight, which incidentally happened to be on here for some crazy reason. If it may have reflect back, I'm not quite sure. It looks a little better now. I hope this could have a little more impact. Either way, this is the final stages now, the final minutes before the actual total solar eclipse, and we're actually dealing right now with some light cloud cover, but the good thing is it doesn't have too much impact with the sun at this moment. And if the rest of the clouds behaves just as well as we would love to have it, then there is absolute no trouble in sight that we are able to present this total solar eclipse here out of Nashville, Tennessee without any further issues on amateur kind of footage as I'll be presenting it. I'm pretty much for sure I'm competing with millions out of there right now. It's just my viewing angle might be somewhat unique. Again, out of the Trinity Lane area over here close to I-65. A traffic hub that gets you from here on up all over the US, and as all over the US is actually trying to come to our unique little place here, as again being the biggest city on the eclipse path that's able to experience this on a direct view. Okay, another extra 5 to 10 minutes later, I would say so, we're having a more interesting case now of darkness approaching with more help now from clouds, which have made themselves more closer around it, and we're definitely past the 75% coverage mark of the sun from the moon, and this is definitely now the case of its final stages. Plus now with the cloud cover coming in, we're getting about very close of a feeling right now to either a very stormy afternoon kind of an approach here with cloudy skies and darkening up and that kind of stuff that you expect from a summer or rainy night. And that just adds on to the effect of also the fact that we have very soon a total solar eclipse with cloud cover, and we'll just see of how much lights out there will really be. And again, we got a little more luck here on those final moments, these last stages here of the solar eclipse, approaching very much of 90% coverage. And it's just me kind of like viewing it to the screen. It's at this moment, because of the direct sunlight, I'm kind of like impacted with myself, hard to determine of how much is really coming up to be viewable and worth the experience. But it's definitely coming to the point of the eclipse where then something will be definitely visible at one point in time, even then, with or without the protective glasses. And it's now cloud cover actually that has surrounded our scenery here. This is not actually no part of anything eclipse-like. This is the fact of the clouds, about hopefully not ruin too much of the next moments here. This is now without the glasses, the cloud coverage that gives us somewhat of a little idea here on what we're looking at. At one moment in time, there was just a little bit visible from the sun, about the 90% coverage. Now, with a little good luck, on the bare eye view, I can make out the sun and its light coverage from the moon. And it appears to be just like the view that we have at nighttime, evening time from the moon, being a sickle, just gaining moon comparison, so to speak. But the cloud coverage has taken it over, leaves barely enough the sunlight through. Again, this is now totally without any protective gear. This is the direct hit now from our sun. Okay, the sun is somewhat returning again, and I'll be able to get somewhat of a trick. Look on the lower part, on the lower southern corner of the cloud part, that breaking light that's coming up right now. And we can just see the little glimpse coming up. I'm gonna be the coverage. And we had to kind of like back into the coverage. It's still pretty strong, even those couple of beams that the sun is still giving us on the opening part of its remaining, like maybe not even 5%, is still strong enough to throw down some serious damage to your eyes if you try to view it directly. And at one moment in time, you were able to see with the bare eye through the southern cloud cover that the eclipse was even visible with the eye without any protective gear, because the cloud cover itself at the moment presented a decent little filtered view with the light. So that worked out pretty decent. These are the final minutes now that we are experiencing with the full sunlight before the eclipse is fully taking place. So again, this experience with the filter in front of the lenses is maybe not very representative of what really can be viewed, but it's given somewhat of an idea. We're about roughly 5 minutes away before the total eclipse will take place. And well, behind the scenes behind me there is definitely some noticeable activity, everybody, so you'll probably get your fair share of lively neighborhood scenery behind me here. And that just happened to be part of life. Cloud cover seem to be still in danger in the view. And cloud cover settling in like it's trying to be some horrendous big time spoiler in those final minutes of the actual remaining sunlight here before the total eclipse really takes over, and then only to be experienced for like 2 minutes at the most. Okay, everybody, now part 2 of our 1080p high definition show of the solar eclipse. I have to put that cover back on. We're just now re-emerging from almost total darkness. The street lights are still on here. Well, we're for a minute. Have gotten off and we're putting our glasses back on. Above is the helicopter that circles around again. I'll refer again to the actual solar eclipse to be available here under 4K at my same channel. And it worked out that my resolution gave me exactly the 5 minutes of 4K footage that I was bargained for, and I got exactly just that, so I hope everybody's able to enjoy that. And we are now continuing again with part 2 of the ending phase of the solar eclipse, and the street light here has come back to quite to normal after pretty much total darkness. I mean, kind of like disappointed about the street lights being on, but I guess that gave it a special effect. With no the street lights, it would have given it real natural total darkness. But as it is, some people for 2 minutes, life still goes on, and they probably had to have whatever was necessary to drive around for those people who just don't believe in this one event of a lifetime. Personally, I rather would have had a total darkness here just to get the image, the real feel of it, which was kind of close. The light in here is not all that bright in this neighborhood. And we are now fading out again. Yeah, now everybody, here in or around Nashville, Tennessee, the Middle Tennessee area, even if you were somewhere else in Tennessee besides Nashville, Tennessee, you would have not really experienced it exactly the same way as we just did right here, right now, because you're not totally in the pathway of this whole spectacle, and it would have been just only a partial view, or maybe not that long, or either way, and it's now even more difficult to make appointments for the next solar eclipse, which is again somewhat out there in 2024 and 26. Some smaller ones maybe in 2018, I recall, and something maybe a little bit past 2020. But there's some traveling involved, and there's some people out there that can make this a lifetime achievement. And you might want to check on their channels here on YouTube on what kind of footage they can present from different angles. The effect remains always spectacular as it is the same, no matter where and how you record it, and it's just nature in its finest, where mankind has just not learned yet how to manipulate this whole thing. Let's just say it like that. And fading, fading out of the whole thing.
It was dark.
Through the filtery eyes again of our protective glasses, we're zooming out of this major event. As I just had a little discussion here with some of the friendly neighbors, that this is just something that history was witnessed by pretty much everybody. And this is just something like my buddy Corey actually said this morning that kept you thinking here, think twice before you start missing an event like this, because you don't get to share this with nobody unless you, of course, have the capability to present something like this over YouTube. But personally, you cannot point out, like, okay, you got to go here or you got to go there, everybody. You cannot share this with nobody in your family, this experience of what has just been witnessed with the real eye by being there. One also amazing effect was definitely appreciated by a lot of viewers, I guess, was the shadowing taken over right here of our whole facility, probably all of Nashville, where the temperatures definitely might have dropped, according to my personal view, a good 10 to 15 degrees, I would say, because 93 in the direct impact, and it feels like close to 100. I would silly have to say I just don't feel it that way right now. And now the cloud cover is also helping out, taking over in all kinds of ways. That this was more of a welcome special side effect right there. And before that, I really had to say I had to make my moves count before everything was really taken in. And under direct sunlight at the beginning with no cloud breaks whatsoever, it was a challenge. And it's slowly but surely giving us back from what we used to know to see for most of our lives. This short little break, altogether barely 2 hours. In itself, the solar eclipse lasted almost up to the seconds of 2 minutes, and stretched itself out. And again, the total eclipse is available here on the 4K footage. Uh, I was really lucky on my timing. I really have to say that it is with the available 5 minutes I was able to play with. Due to memory issues, it worked out pretty good. That's really kind of like all that matters. And now the fade out part, getting through with the the smaller size LG 1080p. It's still full high definition. If it's still also picking up on somewhat the effects of the sun now getting released by the shadowing of the moon. At this awesome August 21st, 2017 solar eclipse, Nashville, Tennessee experience, everybody, as is probably the best way to put it. The only major city, again, in its path, that is able to enjoy the whole thing on the NASA webpage. Again, a bunch of smaller towns. We started out on Oregon, and it will end with its path still further on down in South Carolina. They are still yet have to experience that, what most of the country already have seen, and then it's oh, excuse me, then it's about to disappear over the ocean, and some sailors here and there may be able to get a glimpse of what's going on. But for the most part of this country here, the all American, all Central United States experience has done its path, and it's definitely one for the history books, and never to be seen again in this path for the next up to 500 years. Doubtful, highly doubtful, that any of us will be personally around in this shape, maybe in whatever other forms. We don't know that yet. Ain't nobody has seen that particular weather forecast and under what condition and with what kind of creatures we will be experiencing that. So YouTube, if you are still there at that time and we're still hosting my lonesome footage, then you will be the judge of things to come. Cloud cover, as I was afraid of it earlier, could maybe possibly ruin the sight, has now taken in everything, every corner here, and we're just getting about the final stages, and then it will look like that we're losing the remainder, possibly all of the